Picture the most reliable thing in your world. The thing that has never once let you down. The thing that rises every morning without fail. The thing that warms your crops, marks your seasons, tells you when to wake up and when to go to sleep. Now watch it die. Not slowly, over years, not with warning, just disappearing. In the middle of the day, the sun shrinking to a crescent, then to a thread, then to nothing but a black disk ringed by ghostly white fire. The birds stop singing, the temperature drops. Stars appear in what was, moments ago, a blue midday sky. And you have absolutely no idea what is happening. Let's just establish one thing before we get into the history. Solar eclipses are terrifying even when you know what they are. I don't care that you understand orbital mechanics. I don't care that you've read the Wikipedia article. When totality actually hits, when the last sliver of sun vanishes and the corona blazes in a suddenly dark midday sky, your lizard brain does not care about science. Your lizard brain says we are all going to die. Now imagine experiencing this with absolutely zero scientific framework, no concept of the moon's orbit, no understanding of the sun's actual distance. No one who can tell you this lasts 7 minutes and then everything is fine. A total solar eclipse doesn't just look frightening, it triggers a cascade of genuinely strange phenomena. Animals behave as if night has fallen. Cows lie down, roosters crow. Nocturnal insects begin their evening chorus. The horizon in every direction glows with sunset colors, even though it's noon. The air temperature drops noticeably, sometimes by 10 degrees in 2 minutes. And there in the sky is something that should not exist. A black hole where the sun was, surrounded by a crown of fire. This is not a subtle phenomenon. Ancient peoples from China to Peru to Norway all experienced total solar eclipses, all had zero scientific explanation for them, and all came to the same basic conclusion. This is either the end of the world, an attack by a supernatural being, or divine punishment for something we did. Sometimes all three simultaneously. In ancient China, the prevailing theory was that the sun was being eaten by a dragon, and this theory had a solution: make enough noise to scare the dragon off. This sounds like it should be in the obviously wrong category, but here's the thing, it worked. Every single time. Because of course the eclipse ends on its own, regardless of how much noise you make. But if you're a court astronomer whose job security depends on the eclipse ending, and it ends every time your people beat gongs and shoot arrows, you're not going to update your theory. The Chinese recorded eclipses obsessively. Their records, some of the oldest astronomical records in the world, go back thousands of years and are extraordinarily accurate. The Shang dynasty oracle bones dating to roughly 1300 BC contain eclipse records. The Han dynasty astronomical treatises describe the mathematical patterns of eclipse recurrence. But even as Chinese astronomers built increasingly sophisticated predictive models, the cultural response didn't change. The gongs still came out. The firecrackers still went off. Because when the sun is being eaten by a dragon, you don't just stand there doing math. And here's the part of Chinese eclipse history that perfectly captures the stakes. Around 2134 BC, two royal astronomers named Hai and Ho were executed by the Emperor Zhongkang. Their crime, failing to predict a solar eclipse. Think about the logic of that. The emperor's astronomers are responsible for warning him when celestial catastrophes are about to occur. They missed one. The emperor, presumably having experienced the actual eclipse and being quite shaken by it, decided the appropriate response was execution. This is an extreme performance review even by ancient standards. The Inca civilization revolved around the sun. The Sapa Inca was considered the son of the sun, descendant of Inti, the sun god. The entire Inca imperial legitimacy rested on this divine solar connection. So what happens when the sun disappears? Your emperor's divine parent has gone dark. The cosmic basis of your entire political and religious system has, for several minutes, ceased to exist. Inca responses to eclipses included fasting, ritual weeping, the sacrifice of animals, and collective prayer that could involve hundreds of thousands of people. The Inca capital Cusco would erupt into religious activity the moment an eclipse began, with priests sprinting from the Temple of the Sun to conduct emergency rituals. The Inca also made offerings of chicha, fermented maize beer, to the sun. The idea being that the sun needed strength to fight off whatever was attacking it. I mention this only because give the sun a beer is genuinely one of the most sympathetic and human responses to a solar eclipse I've encountered in any culture. For the Norse peoples, the sun was a goddess named Sol, who drove her chariot across the sky every day, chased by a wolf named Sko. The moon was Mani, chased by another wolf, Hati. Ragnarok, the end of the world, would begin when those wolves finally caught their prey. An eclipse was the wolf getting close. The Norse response to eclipses was similar to the Chinese. Make noise, drive off the wolf. Beat your shields, shout, blow your horns. What I love about the Norse framework is its coherence. If you accept the premise, wolves chasing the sun and moon, then every eclipse is evidence of your mythology, not a contradiction of it. The wolf chased. The wolf got close. We scared it off every single time. That's not a failed prediction system. That's an extremely successful one. Babylon's eclipse response was arguably the most psychologically sophisticated of the ancient world. Their astronomers were actually quite good at predicting eclipses. They knew the Saros cycle, the 18-year, 11-day pattern by which eclipses repeat. They could often tell the king in advance, there is going to be an eclipse. But this knowledge only partly helped. Because even if you know the eclipse is coming, your eclipse omens still say terrible things about the king who reigns when the sun goes dark. Knowing it's coming doesn't make it less bad. It just means you have time to prepare. The Babylonian solution was to temporarily install a substitute king. When an eclipse was predicted, the real king would step down. A peasant or prisoner would be placed on the throne and dressed in royal robes. They would reign for the duration of the eclipse. The evil omen would attach to this substitute. The real king would hide and perform purification rituals. Then, when the appointed time was over, the substitute would be removed. And in many historical records, removed is a euphemism. The substitute king frequently died because you can't have a former king wandering around after you've resumed power. This is either the most cynical omen management system ever devised, or it's an oddly compassionate one, depending on whether you were the substitute. This is arguably the single most historically significant eclipse in recorded history. The year is 585 BC. Two empires, the Medes and the Lydians, have been at war for roughly 5 years. They meet at the Halis River in what is now central Turkey. The battle begins, both sides are fighting, and then the sun goes dark. Both armies stop fighting. Both sides put down their weapons. Both kings decided on the spot that the eclipse was a sign from the gods that the war needed to end. A peace treaty was signed. The war was over. And then there's the remarkable second part of this story. A Greek philosopher named Thales of Miletus had predicted the eclipse. Thales of Miletus is often called the first Western philosopher, the first person to seek natural rather than supernatural explanations for observable phenomena. And according to Herodotus, he predicted to the year that there would be a solar eclipse in 585 BC. The battle stopped. The war ended. History turned because of an eclipse that one person had mathematically anticipated. Thales didn't say a dragon ate the sun. He said the moon will pass between the sun and earth on a predictable schedule. And he was right. And then everyone else had to figure out what to do with someone who can predict the sky itself. After Thales, Greek philosophers built a rapidly improving model of eclipse mechanics. Anaxagoras, around 450 BC, correctly stated that the moon was a solid object illuminated by reflected sunlight, and that eclipses occurred when it blocked the sun. This was correct. Fundamentally, entirely correct. But Anaxagoras was tried and convicted of impiety for suggesting the sun was a burning rock rather than a divine chariot. He was exiled. The correct explanation was politically illegal. The year is 1504. Christopher Columbus is stranded in Jamaica with his crew. His ships are rotting. He's been there for months. The indigenous Arawak people have been remarkably generous in providing food and supplies. But Columbus's crew has been causing problems, and the Arawak have reasonably stopped cooperating. Columbus consults his astronomical almanac, and he finds a gift from the universe. There is a total lunar eclipse that night. The moon will turn blood red. Columbus calls a meeting of Arawak leaders. He tells them that his Christian God is angry with them for not helping. As punishment, God will make the moon change color and disappear. That night, the moon turns blood red and begins to disappear. Columbus locked himself in his cabin for the duration, claiming to be in prayer. The Arawak, in genuine terror, came to his ship with food and promises of cooperation, begging him to bring the moon back. Columbus eventually emerged, announced that God had heard his prayers, and restored the moon, which had simply completed its eclipse on schedule. The food supply was restored. Columbus and his crew survived, and one man's possession of an astronomical almanac managed to temporarily convince an entire population that he had divine power over celestial bodies. The historical record notes that Columbus found this extremely funny. The historical record also notes that most modern historians find it rather less amusing. Let's talk about what an eclipse actually is. And then let's talk about why the fact that we can see them at all is one of the most improbable things in the known universe. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes between the Earth and the Sun, casting its shadow on Earth's surface. Simple, right? Except here's the part where the universe went extremely out of its way. The Sun is approximately 400 times wider than the moon, and the Sun is approximately 400 times further away from Earth than the moon. These two distances very nearly cancel out. The result is that the moon appears, from Earth's surface, to be almost exactly the same apparent size as the Sun. If the moon were slightly smaller or slightly further away, it would never completely cover the Sun. The corona would always be hidden behind the disk. If the moon were slightly larger or closer, it would overlap the Sun too much, blocking the corona entirely. The total solar eclipse, where the moon perfectly covers the Sun's disk while leaving the corona visible, exists because of a coincidence in the relative sizes and distances of three objects that had absolutely no reason to cooperate with each other. The corona, that ghostly crown of light visible during totality, is the Sun's outer atmosphere. It's actually hotter than the Sun's surface, which makes absolutely no physical sense and is one of the great unsolved problems in solar physics. For ancient humans, that mystery looked like divine fire. For modern scientists, it's still one of the most fascinating phenomena in astrophysics. The fear response to a solar eclipse isn't irrational. Not really, it's just ancient brain software running on a modern problem it wasn't designed for. The Sun is one of the most reliable constants in human experience. It has risen every single day, without exception, for your entire life and for every life of every ancestor you've ever had. When it starts to disappear, you are witnessing the violation of the most fundamental constant you know. That should trigger a stress response. It does, even now. Today we travel to eclipses. Hundreds of thousands of people book hotels years in advance to position themselves in the path of totality. There are eclipse chasers who have seen dozens of total eclipses, flying to remote parts of the world to stand in the shadow for 2 minutes. The eclipse that killed armies, ended wars, prompted mass executions, and drove civilizations to ritual sacrifice is now a tourism industry. But here's what eclipse chasers will tell you. Totality is different from partial eclipses in a way that's almost impossible to describe. Partial eclipses, even 99% coverage, don't prepare you for totality. When that last 1% of sun vanishes, something changes. The corona erupts, the temperature drops, the birds go silent. Something primitive in your brain wakes up and says, "This isn't right." We know what it is, we know it's safe, we know it ends in 2 minutes. And it still hits different. Next time a solar eclipse is coming to your area, go. Stand in the path of totality. Feel what your ancestors felt, but with the comfort of knowing that the dragon always loses and the wolf always lets go. And if you find yourself briefly, irrationally certain that the world is ending, well, now you know you're in good company. Subscribe to Animated History. Next time, the moon, the object that made us go mad, fear werewolves, and build stone circles, which honestly is all understandable.